Good morning, Central Kentucky. This is Sandra Leslie White coming to you live from WJMM Studios here in Versailles, Kentucky. Yes, Versailles is the way we say that around here. We're just outside of Lexington, Kentucky, and shouting out to all of you around the country that listen in on WJMM.com. I appreciate you, and Facebook Live. Good morning. Well, so, do you want God to come near? Do you? Yesterday's show was all about when God leaves the room. We don't want that. But then today's show is about when God enters the room. Okay, so where are you in that spectrum? You want God to withdraw, His protection, His provision, His priesthood, His prophecies from you? Or do you want God to draw really near to you, just speak to you and develop just wonderful intimacy with you? So there's sort of two spectrums here, and maybe you're somewhere along the spectrum. Usually we are somewhere along that spectrum. There's even seasons of life, I think, where we find ourselves on the side of withdrawing. Is He withdrawing from me provision, protection, prophecies? Or on the other side of that, is He drawing near to me and loving me and providing for me and teaching me through His word and protecting me from the evils of this world all around us? So anyway, we're going to talk about that spectrum today, because yesterday I promised we'd continue this story. We don't want to land when God, leaves the room, and that's where we were in Hosea 5:6. So we're going to go there again today and just talk about when He's withdrawn from them, why He has withdrawn from them, and then look at some application today about wanting to go to the other end of that spectrum. So let's look at Hosea 5:6 and 7 today. I think we'll go on just with those two verses. So in the New American Standard Version this morning, this is Sandra Leslie White coming to you live on WJMM. Hosea 5:6 and 7 says this: "They will go with their flocks and herds to seek the Lord, but they will not find Him. He has withdrawn from them. They have dealt treacherously against the Lord, for they have borne illegitimate children. Now the new moon will devour them with their land." Okay, so this is Sandra Leslie White. We may go into that new moon tomorrow, so let's just focus on verse 6. "They will go with their flocks and herds to seek the Lord, but they will not find Him. He has withdrawn from them." All right, so we're in the midst, if you are new to the show, maybe just driving along in your car to your next meeting or the grocery store or wherever you're going, on 99.1 FM, life-changing radio. This is Sandra Leslie White. We've been in Hosea for some time now, talking about the reality of what happened to God's people in the latter part of the 8th century BC in the northern and now southern kingdom of Israel. Israel and Judah, both kingdoms, all peoples are now being addressed in Hosea 5. Because moreover, in verse 5 of 5, the pride of Israel testifies against him, and Israel and Ephraim stumble in their iniquity. Judah also has stumbled with them. They will go with their flocks and herds to seek the Lord, but will not find Him. He has withdrawn from them. So there's your context, that very immediate context of what the greater book is about, which is the waywardness of God's people. And does He ever get tired of this? Does he just write all of Israel off? It seems that way. It seems that's what He did in the beginning of the book of Hosea. We're familiar with the story perhaps between Gomer, the wayward wife of Hosea, the holy prophet. And so that's that living parable about this wayward wife that keeps running after false gods. It keeps running back to her old ways of temple prostitution, it seems, when she's married to an holy man. And so what in the world is a man to do when he's got a wayward wife? Well, what is Yahweh to do when he has a wayward people? So here we go. They are going now, it seems. They're going back to the temple. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. They will go with their flocks and herds to seek the Lord. All right. So it's sort of this really lame attempt to seek the Lord. Okay, they're realizing that his provision is wavering, his protection is certainly wavering. They're about to be overcome by the Assyrian army. And they realize that maybe we ought to just go back to the Lord. Well, we ought to go back to the Lord with the right sacrifices because they've been using the wrong sacrifices. So this whole thing about sacrifice, I think, is interesting. But God says that, well, the scriptures say they're going to seek the Lord. They will not find him. So it seems like Hosea is talking here. They will go with their flocks and herds to seek the Lord. They will not find him. He has withdrawn from them. So these sort of lame, pardon the pun there, lame sacrifices of flocks and herds, to try to make things right. They're making this effort of, I'm going to take the right sacrifices now, because those were the sacrifices of the day, as you know. I'm not going to bring the pagan sacrifices of, my own children, or, sacrificing in the high places, in the open places, incense and all kinds of stuff to pagan gods, and then having intercourse with the pagan prostitutes, both male and female. And so they decide, oh, well, this isn't going well. This is not going well for us. We better return to the Lord. Let's just go ahead. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. Let's just take our flocks and herds. But they would not find him. Okay, he's withdrawn. So now today we want to talk about that. I mean, we know, and I've talked about this before, that, rebelliousness leads us to a parched land. I think that's Psalm 68:6. God really is a God of provision. God is a provider. He's a protector. He's a priest. He gives us that image, certainly in Hosea chapter 2, to give men today sort of the qualities they need, the roadmap they need to be a godly man, a protector, a provider, the priest in the home. So this is who Yahweh is. And he does that, but when we rebel against him, Psalm 68:6, we find ourselves in a parched land. So then we get to this point where we want him to come near, so we start to bring these sort of lame sacrifices to him. And to me, that's just sort of the way we are as people. We just kind of grovel back, we kind of, in our little pitiful ways, we come back to the Lord. We've been, going our own ways, and seemingly it's not going well for us. But do we really want to come near to God? Do we want him to come near to us? There's the question. And the title of the message today, when God enters the room. So yesterday was God leaves the room. Today is when God enters the room. So I want us to just really think about that. There's so many wonderful worship songs. I was listening to one coming in by Red Rock Ministries, I think, this morning on Pandora. It's the Stephanie Gratzinger's, radio station on Pandora, and it was called More. More of you, God, more of you. We have a lot of worship going around the nation, just wanting more of God and more of God and more of God, and God's going, really? 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 You want more? Okay. So if you want more of God, if you want God to enter the room, if you want God to enter into your house of worship, your home, your quiet place, your heart, if you want more of him, it can be a rocky ride. We have a misconception, I think, out there that if we want more of God in His presence, we want to be in His presence. That's what we want to. I may play that song tomorrow. You know, I'm a lover of your presence. Well, to be a lover of God's presence is to be prepared for some pretty harsh messages, because He loves us far too much to leave us in these pitiful, groveling states. He is God. He is Yahweh to the Old Testament. He is Jesus to the New Testament. He's God in the flesh, but He does not desire to just let us stay where we are, particularly if it's been a chronic state for a long time. And God knows I have been in those states where He just is going to allow you and me to enter in to a parched land. There is a rebelliousness in us. It's innate. It's from the garden forward. It's how we are. We're rebellious people. Hosea is all about that. Is He just going to give up on Israel? Well, you know, we may know the answer to that. But there are some deep teachings throughout Hosea as to how he deals with his people that are refreshing to me, frightening, refreshing, frightening, convicting, powerful, but so beautiful. I mean, I think one thing about knowing and understanding the Old Testament, the Hebrew language, is to see the incredible beauty of God, the romance of God, but the power of God. He is omniscient. He knows all things. He knows everything about you and me. He is omnipresent. He's all places at all times. He doesn't fully withdraw, meaning He may withdraw provision. He may withdraw His protection. He may withdraw His prophecies. And that may be for a season, so that we can begin to come back to Him with our lame sacrifices and allow Him and His holiness to truly restore us. I mean, without the presence of God, the holiness of God, the fire of God, burning off the chaff, I mean, really, that's so uncomfortable. Burning off the chaff from us. When God draws near, when we're crying out for God and we want Him to come near, well, He will, and it may not be comfortable all the time with Him. So let's look at this New Testament application that I just thought about in the last couple of minutes here out of James. It's interesting to me. In James 4:8, he says this: draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. Okay, so this is interesting. He's saying draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. So, I mean, I would think it'd be the other way around, right? God comes to you, we come to Him. Well, James says draw near to God, He will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be miserable and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves in the presence of the Lord, and He will exalt you. So there is a time, and backing that up to verse 7, verse 6, He gives grace to but He gives greater grace. Therefore, He says, God is opposed to the proud, gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, he will flee. Draw near to God, He will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. Ooh. So, I mean, look at this whole idea of double-mindedness in the first part of James, where he says this. But he says, any of you lacks wisdom, ask of God, in verse 5 of chapter 1. But if anyone asks in faith without doubting, for the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. Let not that man expect that he will receive anything from the Lord, being a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Okay, that whole idea of double-mindedness, loving God but doing our thing, loving God but doing our thing, loving God, hearing the word, doing our thing, is where we find ourselves to be so unstable. So he wants us to come out of the parched land, even as we ask him to draw near, and he will. It's about burning off all those things that keep us from his provision, his protection, his prophecies over our lives. So, you want God to draw near? Draw near to him. God bless you today. We'll look forward to being on this topic again tomorrow.